Well, today is April 18th, Good Friday, and it's an important date in Canadian history because most people receive this little card from Elections Canada, and today is the first day when you can do advance voting. So surprisingly, even though it's a holiday, but all over Canada, polling stations are open 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And I just saw some news on TV saying that people are surprised to see such a turnout. One guy says, like an older gentleman like me, he says, I always vote early, I never had to wait. And now they're saying in Toronto people are waiting in line like for an hour just to cast their vote. And so I thought I would do this video because I haven't looked closely at Canadian politics. I was mostly preoccupied with what's happening south of the border in the States, because that directly affects us in Canada here. And no, we're not for sale. That's official. You saw it first here. Yeah, basically the way it works, you receive this card, and then you go to your, when they tell you where to go in your area with some ID, kind of like in the States, right? And you have 4 days only. So today, then Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So April 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st. In my case, it's a school close by. I think I voted there before, yeah. And then the actual election day, and then yeah, if you don't vote during these 4 days, then that's it. You have to wait until April 28th, which is actually the election day. And so this morning I spent looking at, well, I saw some clips of this week they had the English language debate, and turns out there's 4 major parties in Canada. Of course, now we have Liberals or Democrats in power, and after our Hitler Trudeau resigned, the Liberal Party stayed in place, but they pushed forward the guy called Carney, who became the Prime Minister. And so to get the feedback, I guess, from the population, they announced this federal election ahead of time. It was not supposed to happen this early, but now they want to see. And so I've been looking at this like, okay, so who are we voting for? Actually, a couple of years ago, when I was still in Ontario, I decided I was donating some money to Conservatives, and they kept asking me, and then they lost, and they kept asking me for money. It's like, wait, why do I give you money? You guys are losers, But they lost. So back then it was, what was the name of the guy? So he also retired. Like, he was the leader of that Conservative Party. And after they lost the election, I think it was in 21 or 22, he resigned. And so now, based on this last English language debate, because that shows you all the contestants, right? So we have 4 guys, not a single woman. So we have this guy with a strange name of Pierre, Poilievre, representing Conservative Party. And then we have Carney, the current Prime Minister, who represents Liberal Party. And then we have this Indian guy, Jagmeet Singh, who is the head of a new Democratic Party. Kind of like another spiel on a Liberal Party, or Democrats, yeah. And then number 4, who was also on the debate stage, is Yves-Fransois Blanchet, who represents a party called Bloc Quebecois. And out of these 4, for me personally, it's real easy to eliminate 2 right away. This Bloc Quebecois, they were always against kind of like Canada. They wanted to separate. At one point, they even held a referendum trying to, you know, see how many people would support Quebec going away from Canada. So they're crazy. And plus, he hardly speaks any English, and he's 60 years old. So no to Yves-Fransois Blanchet. Out of 4, now we have 3. So we have Pierre Poilievre, Mark Carney, and Jagmeet Singh. Now, number 3, Jagmeet Singh, is an interesting character. He looks like a Indian guy with, you know, typical turban, and he wears it pink. But this guy speaks fluent English. He's basically, if you put a screen in front of his face and he was talking, you would never guess that his origins are Indian. He speaks like, I cannot say you and me because I'm an immigrant myself. He speaks much better than me. So he speaks like native Canadian or American. And so basically appearances can be deceitful, right? And also, he's a university graduate and he was a lawyer. This guy, Jagmeet Singh, was a lawyer before he became a politician. So he's really smart, you know. The only problem is, I was reading up on him on Wikipedia and, you know, all his platforms, and it's typical liberal / democratic stuff. Like in particular, I like going to, you know, public land to shoot some targets, right? So firearms are important to me. And he still supports the ban on firearms, whereas under Trudeau, every couple of years they kept adding banned firearms to the list, you know. So basically, all these guys are trying to do, like the Liberal Party and this new Democratic Party, they're trying to punish legal gun owners, which has no connection whatsoever with crimes, right? Because people that use guns to commit crimes, they don't use their legally purchased guns, right? So otherwise, maybe if you're crazy and you go buy a gun, and then you go, of course, you cannot buy a gun if you're crazy, if you're certifiable, right? But let's say you bought a gun and then you went crazy and you forgot that this gun is registered in your name and you go kill somebody. Like, you really have to be a nut, you know, to do that. And of course, most people don't want to know who committed the murder, and so they don't want to have a connection to the firearm, right? And so most of the guns, from what I heard, that are used in Canada for crimes illegally are brought from US illegally. So these are illegal guns. So I see no freaking point in what they're trying to do. They kept, you know, tightening the screws on legal gun owners such as myself, right? Okay, I don't need an automatic weapon, but actually, why not? You know, like, it would be cool to go just, you know, just for fun to shoot like a fully automatic gun. Why I cannot buy a 50 caliber gun? Well, in the States it's possible. Here, come on, you know, like, if we allow this guy to buy a 50 mil, you know, he's definitely gonna go and shoot up somebody. Like, and so this guy Singh, he supports the same policy that's currently in place, which was studied by the liberal parties, where after each of these school shootings in the States, and then we had one in Canada a long time ago, I think in Nova Scotia, they started banning all these guns, you know. And so, yeah, so Jagmeet Singh, even though he's a smart guy, and by the way, he practices jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, so basically a very fit guy, fluent English, lawyer, smart, but what are you doing at the Democratic Party? Come on, cancel. So out of 4, so that was pretty easy, right? So now we have Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre, which I would definitely support conservatives because they're better for business, they're better for the economy. But this guy, he's kind of like a clown because I've been watching him on TV. He was constantly clashing with Trudeau when Trudeau was in power, so he was really, you know, provoking and creating disturbance in the parliament, and they call him populist. So basically, this guy would say whatever he believes people want him to say, and so he's, yeah, if you read up on his platform, yeah, he wants to cut income tax, you know, He wants to reverse the ban on plastics that Trudeau put in place. Like, turns out, I didn't even know, but that's why most stores here, they stopped offering plastic bags, and basically it was a multi-stage ban. And so now, even like the other day, I went to Dairy Queen, get a burger, and I don't like plastics in my brain, because that's what they say when they do you know, autopsies of dead people. There's like, each one of us, we have microplastics, because there's so much plastics around, and it's actually, it's not a passive material, right? It's still active. So so glass or metal would be better. So here, actually, I don't want more plastics, but I remember it was really annoying first, you know. So now you have to bring your own bags when you go to a store, whereas before, all these bags, you know, plastic bags were like 5 cents each or something. And so this Pierre, he wants to ban, or, you know, turn around this ban, and so he wants to introduce plastics back in our life, which I'm not sure is such a good idea. But he is against all this gun policy that liberals are you know, proposing. So he's against the, what they call, long gun registry. He does not support banning guns, so he's on the side of the firearm owners. And he's promising income tax cuts. He's promising cheaper housing. Basically, kind of like some people were comparing him with Trump, because his slogan is Canada First. So he's kind of like our Canadian version of Trump. But he's a clown. He talks, you know, he says whatever people want him to hear. So there's no guarantee that if he's elected, he'll do the stuff he says, you know. Because I read up on him, and I was like thinking, okay, so probably this guy's from Quebec, right? So Pierre Poilievre, with that weird spelling. Turns out he was born in Calgary, Alberta, right where I'm filming this from. But his mother abandoned him, basically sent him for adoption. And he was adopted by 2 francophones from Saskatchewan. Like, what? We have French-speaking people in Saskatchewan? And he grew up in I think Alberta. Yeah, he grew up in Alberta. And so he became politician from like 20 years old. You know, 20 years old, he was working for different political offices. I don't know what's wrong with him, but ever since he was a kid, basically, he wanted to be in politics. So he's a professional politician. So I don't think a guy like that can be trusted. That's why they call him populist. So he will do things to, like, I'm telling you, he's like our version of Trump. Now, Mark Carney, Liberal Party. Oh yeah, and so Pierre is 45 years old. Mark Carney, the current Prime Minister, is 60. And then that Jagmeet Singh is 46, and Yves-Fransois Blanchet is 60. So now we have Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre. So what I like about Mark Carney is that he comes from banking. So this guy, super smart, 60 years old, you know, not a kid anymore. And he was in banking for most of his life. He was like the president of Bank of England or something. I don't know. He worked for financial companies. So he comes kind of like from big business. Okay. But again, my measuring stick is their firearms policy. And of course, this guy totally supports banning. Like, I'm guessing if it was his way, he would ban all firearms, you know, totally, again, which would have no impact on these mass shootings, because people would use the same guns they are using now, illegal guns brought from US. Again, like, why would anybody try to ban, you know, to put these screws on legal gun owners? And so, I don't know. So basically, Mark Carney is a banker, Pierre Poilievre is a clown, populist, but his ideas seem okay. So I don't know. But that's me. So that's me. I'm making a decision between Pierre Poilievre, Conservative Party, or Mark Carney, Liberal Party. But this guy, his campaign is like whenever he goes, he puts the word change. And he says, do you really want to have another decade of liberals? Because these guys have been in power, I forgot, 30 or 40 years, you know, because before, now it's Mark Carney, right? Before there was Trudeau. Before Trudeau, I think it was his father. And basically they're saying that, look what they did to the country. And of course, to me as a trucker, I still remember, I really hated Trudeau for this. But a few years ago, back when I was, you know, putting fuel in my own truck, and I had, of course, 2 huge tanks, 150 gallons, and sometimes I usually would try to fuel in the States, of course, because the diesel fuel is way cheaper in the States. But sometimes I was so low, I had to get to the States somehow, right? And so I would go to Petro-Canada, near the place where I was parking my truck, and I would get like 500 liters of fuel, or let's see, 500 divided by 3.78, 132 gallons. Now imagine, so 500, the price was, I think it was like $1.10. And then all of a sudden, overnight, they introduced that carbon tax, and the price went by about 20 points, you know. And so 500 times 0.2, that's $100. So right away, to fill up 500 liters of diesel, it cost me $100 more. Thanks to then Prime Minister Trudeau and the Liberal Party. So now that has been reversed, and I've been driving around and did some Uber today, and I was paying attention to gas prices. They dramatically went down because of this carbon tax cancellation. So 2.5 weeks ago, gas here was selling for $1.58 per liter. Now it's $1.30, and I saw $1.24, $1.22, you know, but you really need, it's somewhere like deep down south in Calgary. But yeah, so 28 cents, you know, per liter less, that's a big change. And of course, Mark Carney, actually, he canceled that carbon tax because it was so unpopular, but it was introduced by his party. And so this Pierre Poilievre, of course, he's against all this stuff. He wants to limit the government involvement. He wants the economy to get healthier. So I don't know. The only thing is, I don't like that he's a career politician, and that it looks like he just wants to stir up things. Like I saw him talking in the parliament. He was constantly, you know, kind of like starting verbal fights with Trudeau. He's a bit nuts. So I don't know. So that's our state of affairs here with Canadian federal election, and evidently a lot of people already made up their minds because, like I mentioned in the beginning of this, polling stations were super busy today. People are rushing to cast their vote. My suspicion is that most people actually are so freaking tied up. I mean, tired of the Liberal Party, so most people are really going for the change slogan, and they're gonna vote for the Conservative Party. Me, I don't know. I still have what, 4 days, 3 days to cast my advance vote, or I have until April 28th to decide between these two, Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney, and see what I want to do. But definitely very important time in Canadian history, especially with Trump attacking Canada. I know this trade war and wanting us to become a 51st state, which again, it's such a stupid idea. Like, we have all these territories, right? We have, you know, British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec. So all these are jurisdictions with their own government, their own minister, their own, yeah, like prime minister, right? Like we have prime minister of Alberta, right? So these are all kind of like mini countries. So how can you combine all of this into one state? That would never make sense. You know, at least offer to make each province into a state. Then, I mean, it will be more reasonable. But to take the entire country of Canada, which is bigger than the states in terms of, you know, mass, and turn it into a state, that's just ridiculous. It's just childish and it's stupid. So anyway, thanks for watching. So this was my rare update on Canadian politics from Calgary, Alberta. This is Undecided, Captain Sergei.